Picture this, all right? You're going about your day. Maybe you're in a meeting at work, or, perhaps you're sitting at a really crowded family dinner, and it happens. Someone disrespects you.
Right, and it's almost never the big stuff.
Exactly. It's nothing huge. It's not a massive betrayal or like a cinematic screaming match. It's just an unfair comment, a slight crossing of a boundary.
Just a subtle passive-aggressive dig.
Yeah. And it makes you feel this sudden, really sharp flash of annoyance right in your chest. You want to react. You want to look them in the eye and say, "Excuse me." But then almost immediately, this calm, measured voice in your head just chimes in.
The voice of reason.
Right. It says, "Let it go. Don't make a scene. Be the bigger person. Be stoic." And it sounds incredibly mature. So you take a breath, you hold your tongue, and you move on to the next topic of conversation.
And, it feels like a genuine victory in that split second, right?
Yeah.
You experience the sensation of successfully managing your emotions under pressure.
Oh, totally. You give yourself this mental pat on the back for being so evolved. But later, there's this lingering feeling, a quiet, uncomfortable buzz at the back of your mind that just doesn't quite go away.
Yeah, that buzz is the giveaway.
And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive, truly fascinating stack of philosophical notes and psychological observations to answer one very uncomfortable question.
I'm ready for it.
In those moments of silence, when we swallow our pride and keep the peace, are we actually being calm and practicing stoicism? Or are we just terrified of conflict and lying to ourselves?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the line between genuine emotional regulation and profound self-deception is incredibly thin. It's razor thin.
Wow.
Yeah, and the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre actually dedicated a massive amount of his work to this specific phenomenon. He called it bad faith.
Bad faith, right.
Right. Sartre argued that as humans, we are uniquely capable of lying to ourselves. But we don't do it with massive, unbelievable falsehoods. We do it by crafting highly rational, beautifully constructed excuses.
So we're kind of playing both parts.
Exactly. We act as both the deceiver and the deceived simultaneously. So in that moment of conflict at the dinner table, you don't look inward and admit, "I am terrified of confronting my uncle, so I'm going to back down."
No, nobody says that to themselves.
Exactly. Instead, you tell yourself, "I am in control of my emotions. I am choosing peace."
Because I'm in control is a narrative that really protects the ego, isn't it? It transforms a moment of submission into an act of virtue.
It really does. We keep a fragment of the truth, like the literal fact that we stay quiet, but we completely rewrite the underlying motivation.
We convince ourselves that our silence is the sign of profound emotional regulation rather than, just a reflex of fear.
Yes, we construct this elaborate mental architecture to avoid admitting that we just let someone cross a boundary. So we have to look closely at our sources today and ask whether our modern, everyday brand of Stoicism is really just a convenient, respectable shield.
A shield to keep us from facing things that are genuinely wrong.
That's precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to push back on the framing here a bit. Keeping the peace actually does have practical value.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, we live in a wildly overstimulating, stressful world. If I choose not to make a big deal out of a rude coworker, I save my energy. If I react to every single slight or passive-aggressive email, I'm going to be entirely depleted by noon.
Oh, without a doubt.
So, what is the fundamental problem with just letting the small things slide?
Well, letting certain things slide isn't the issue. The issue lies entirely in the mechanism of why you're doing it.
Okay, the why.
Right. You aren't avoiding the conflict because you're emotionally bulletproof. You avoid it because it is the path of least resistance. When you spot someone doing something wrong, recognizing the bad behavior is actually the easy part.
Right. You know it's wrong immediately.
Yeah, the friction comes in the next step.
Yeah.
Action has a distinct cost. If you speak up, you invite unpredictability into your life. You risk an argument.
Which nobody wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You risk damaging a relationship or facing professional consequences that are entirely outside of your control.
So it's basically the brain prioritizing immediate safety over long-term resolution.
Yes. Sigmund Freud explored this heavily. He pointed out that human beings are fundamentally hardwired to actively avoid psychological pain, stress, and instability.
We always think of ourselves as pleasure-seeking, though.
We do, but pain avoidance is a far stronger driver. The human brain treats social conflict much like it treats physical danger.
Wait, really? Like actual physical danger?
Yeah, a sarcastic comment from a boss triggers the same stress response as a physical threat in the wild. The brain's primary objective is just to keep you safe from that threat.
So you aren't dodging the confrontation because you've reached some higher plane of Zen enlightenment.
Nope. You are dodging it because you do not want to pay the psychological toll of doing the right thing.
That makes so much sense. It's like sweeping dirt under a rug and proudly calling yourself a neat freak.
That's a great way to put it.
You aren't actually cleaning, you just don't want to deal with the dustpan. It's like putting a piece of black tape over your car's check engine light and praising yourself for fixing the car.
Exactly. You haven't addressed the engine at all. You've just blinded yourself to the warning signs because you don't want to pay the mechanic.
And you're driving down the highway feeling incredibly proud of your pristine dashboard right up until the entire transmission drops out.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. You're masking the symptom and rebranding the behavior as a success. And the research in our stack highlights some painfully common examples of this psychological sleight of hand.
Like what?
Well, think about a genuinely toxic work environment. Someone is constantly disrespectful, maybe constantly taking credit for your work.
Yeah, classic nightmare scenario.
Right. Instead of addressing it or setting a firm boundary, you rationalize it. You tell yourself, well, every corporate environment has its politics. I'm just being a consummate professional by not getting involved.
Oh, wow. I've definitely said that.
Most of us have. Or consider a romantic relationship where a partner repeatedly dismisses your needs. Instead of addressing the neglect, you spin it into, I shouldn't try to control my partner. I need to practice radical acceptance.
Right. So you dress up the fear of instability in the clothes of maturity.
Exactly.
You wrap your avoidance in this impenetrable language of acceptance, but you aren't truly accepting the situation, you're simply enduring it.
Yes. And enduring something out of fear while loudly calling it a virtue is the ultimate form of self-betrayal.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If this self-deception is just a personal glitch, like a trick the brain plays to avoid a stress headache, why does it feel like a universal experience?
That is the big question.
Because it's not just a solo act, right? We are actively taught to do this. As kids, we constantly hear phrases like, don't cause trouble, or be the bigger person, or growing up means learning to let things go.
We hear it constantly.
So are we inherently cowards, or is there an external pressure cooking us into this behavior?
Well, to answer that, we have to move from individual psychology into the realm of societal conditioning. And our sources point to Michel Foucault, who wrote extensively about how power operates.
Okay, what did he say?
He noted that true power in a society isn't about a dictator forcing people to behave at gunpoint. Real enduring power is completely invisible. It is about shaping behavior through unspoken social rules and micro-corrections. I mean, you were almost never explicitly forced to be silent when a colleague talks over you in a meeting.
Right. No one says be quiet.
But you know the invisible social cost of speaking up.
Oh, absolutely. You learn the mechanics of that invisible power through the smallest interactions. It's the heavy sigh from the rest of the room when you bring up a complaint.
Yes, the heavy sigh.
Or it's suddenly finding yourself mysteriously left off the email chain for the next project. Society uses these tiny, socially isolating weapons to enforce the silence.
Precisely. And the philosopher Karl Marx offers a crucial lens for understanding why society does this. Now, keeping in mind we are just reporting on the source material here, Marx explains that systems, whether we are talking about a massive capitalist economy, a government, or just your local human resources department, will almost always prioritize order over justice.
Order over justice. Because order keeps things moving.
Exactly. Order is what keeps the machine running. Justice, or correcting a wrong, causes friction. It requires investigations, arguments, and realignments. It literally shakes the foundation.
So the system wants to avoid that at all costs.
Yes. Because the system's primary goal is its own survival, it inherently rewards people who keep their heads down, absorb the friction, and maintain the status quo.
Wow. So the office dynamic where everyone knows the manager is entirely toxic, but nobody says a single word. That isn't a broken system.
No, it's not broken at all.
It is society operating exactly as it was designed to.
You nailed it. And over time, this collective rewarded silence normalizes the bad behavior entirely. The wrong doesn't disappear, it just becomes part of the institutional furniture.
Because pointing at it makes you a liability to the system's order.
Exactly. And the tragedy here is that we have started calling this passive, system-preserving obedience Stoicism. which is a grotesque distortion of the actual philosophy.
Right, because if you look at Marcus Aurelius, the most recognizable figure of Stoicism, he was a Roman emperor.
The literal emperor.
He commanded armies and ran an empire. He wasn't sitting in a quiet room manifesting positive vibes while the world burned outside.
If Marcus Aurelius simply ignored every corrupt official, every invading force, and every injustice in his empire for the sake of keeping the peace, Rome would have collapsed.
It would have been gone in a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True Stoicism was never about ignoring wrongs or becoming a passive doormat to maintain order. Marcus Aurelius faced the profound darkness and complexity of the world head-on. He acted, he judged, he ruled.
He just did it without letting the external chaos corrupt his internal character.
Yes, he didn't let the world's anger make him angry.
He dealt with the broken engine, but he didn't let the broken engine destroy his sense of self. And today, we've conflated the two. We think being a Stoic means never opening the hood in the first place.
We view inaction as the highest form of emotional control, which is a huge mistake.
Okay, so society gives you a gold star for keeping the peace, and your brain is thrilled because it avoided the cortisol spike of a confrontation.
A win-win, supposedly.
Right. But if both the system and your biology are happy, why does it feel so awful when you are finally alone? Like, think about the last time you told someone you were just letting it go after a tense family dinner. Did you actually let it go, or did you vent to your partner for the entire 45-minute drive home?
Usually the drive home, yeah.
And when you are finally staring at the ceiling in the dark and no one is judging you, the mental tape rewinds. You realize with terrifying clarity, I could have spoken up, I should have set a boundary. Why can't we just enjoy the peace we supposedly bought with our silence?
Well, that phenomenon you're describing is the existential hangover, and it carries immense weight. Sartre explains this by pointing out that consciousness cannot be turned off.
We're stuck with it.
We are fundamentally aware of our own choices, even the ones we try to hide from ourselves.
Oh, that's heavy.
And our sources bring in Albert Camus here as well. Camus points out that absurdity isn't just out there in the world. The absurd lives inside of us when we deeply believe one thing, but act out another.
So there's a fundamental split in our reality.
Exactly. You could spin the narrative to your friends, you can rationalize it to your HR department, but in the quiet of your own mind, you know the absolute truth. You know you compromised your own boundary.
You literally cannot outrun your own awareness of your inaction.
You can't. Friedrich Nietzsche had a very sharp, uncompromising view on this internal conflict, too. He famously described this exact behavior as the morality of the weak.
The morality of the weak. That is harsh.
It is harsh, but it's a brilliant observation of how we portray ourselves. He argued that when you lack the courage to stand up for yourself, you rebrand your fear as tolerance, forgiveness, or patience.
So you use moral superiority to hide from the terrifying reality of your own weakness.
Yes, you tell yourself you are a saint for enduring the disrespect, rather than admitting you were too afraid to demand respect.
I mean, I understand the philosophical weight of that, but let's look at the long game for a second. What is the actual tangible danger here?
Okay, fair question.
Let's say I do rebrand my fear a little bit just to get through the work week. I swallow my pride to keep my job, or I bite my tongue to keep Thanksgiving from turning into a shouting match. In the grand scheme of a long life, does brushing off a few rude comments really matter?
Well, Marcus Aurelius considered this exact question, and his conclusion was that it matters immensely. The true danger isn't that the world is flawed or that other people are going to wrong you.
What's the danger then?
The profound danger is that your internal compass becomes broken without you even noticing.
How does the compass break just from, avoiding an argument?
Because if you continually lower your standards to avoid conflict, your mind has to adapt to survive that dissonance. If you constantly rationalize why you shouldn't speak up, eventually you stop seeing the wrong entirely.
Your baseline just shifts.
Your brain adjusts to the new, lowered baseline. You shrink yourself to fit the shape of your own inaction. And the danger is that you become someone who no longer recognizes injustice or disrespect.
Because recognizing it would mean admitting how much of it you've quietly tolerated over the years.
Precisely. You don't just lose a single argument at a dinner table. You lose the structural integrity of your own identity. You dissolve into the very system you originally despised.
You shrink yourself to fit your inaction. Wow, so what does this all mean? We can't just put tape over the check engine light.
Right.
But going back to that analogy, If I shouldn't ignore the warning light, does that mean I need to burn the house down every time I see a speck of dust? Or, I guess, replace the entire transmission every time the car makes a strange noise?
No, absolutely not.
Do I have to fight every single battle, no matter how small, just to prove I'm not lying to myself?
No, and that is where the practical application of true Stoicism provides a lifeline. Seneca makes this incredibly clear in his writings. Not every battle is worth fighting, because you will simply burn out.
Right, you'd just be exhausted all the time.
Exactly. You do not have the energy, the time, or the mandate to fix everyone around you.
Then how do we navigate this? How do we find the line between picking our battles and deceiving ourselves?
We look to Epictetus. And to understand this, we have to understand the context of his philosophy. Epictetus wasn't some modern corporate guru talking about mindset optimization.
Right, he had a very different life.
He spent a significant portion of his life as a slave in the Roman Empire. His philosophy was forged in absolute, brutal, physical subjugation.
So when he talks about what we can control, it's not theoretical.
Not at all. When he speaks about the dichotomy of control, it carries profound weight. He taught that you cannot control the system. You cannot control your toxic boss, the rude relative, or the physical circumstances you're placed in.
But you do control your reaction.
You possess absolute sovereignty over your internal reaction.
His concept of control was about the only thing you truly own when your external autonomy is stripped away.
Exactly. And the crucial distinction Epictetus offers is this. Not controlling others does not mean accepting everything they do to you as right.
That's a huge difference.
It means you act with absolute clarity regarding your own internal boundaries. You don't act from a place of a bruised ego or fiery anger or a desperate need to dominate the other person. You act purely to preserve your own integrity.
Okay, let's break down what that actually looks like when you are in the room facing the disrespect. How do we apply that clarity?
Well, the source material strips away all the theoretical noise and reveals that in any of these situations, you only have 3 distinct paths forward. And the fundamental rule is that every single path requires a toll.
Nothing is free.
Nothing.
Well, the default path is just maintaining the status quo, right? You stay silent, you keep the peace, you keep your job, and you avoid the immediate argument.
But the toll is your own self-respect. You keep the stability, but you swallow the existential hangover and lose your self-honesty.
Okay, so the second option flips that equation. You speak up, you establish the boundary, and you preserve your internal clarity and self-respect.
Right. But the toll there is the peace you were trying to protect. You invite conflict, discomfort, and you potentially destabilize the relationship or your position.
Which leaves the third option. You leave. You quit the job. You walk away from the relationship. You stand up and leave the dinner table.
Exactly.
You keep your boundaries completely intact, and you don't have to engage in the conflict. But the toll is massive. You lose the relationship or the position entirely. Stay silent, speak up, or leave.
Those are the mechanics of reality. There's no secret fourth option where you get to say exactly what you feel, everyone claps, the toxic person apologizes, and the peace is perfectly maintained.
We all want that fourth option, though.
We do, but it doesn't exist. The core of true Stoicism isn't about finding a magical life hack to never feel pain or discomfort. It is about looking at those 3 choices with open eyes, selecting one, and being fiercely, uncomfortably honest with yourself about the price you are paying.
So if you choose to stay silent.
If you choose to stay silent because you absolutely need the paycheck to feed your family, that is a valid choice. But own the reality of it. Say, I am staying silent because I need the money, not I am staying silent because I am a profoundly evolved Zen master.
Right. It's the radical honesty that saves you from the self-deception, which brings us to the ultimate strategy you can pull from these sources.
Takeaway.
It's incredibly practical. They call it the 1-second pause. When you are facing a wrong, when that coworker makes the comment or that boundary is clearly crossed, do not react blindly in a flash of anger. But equally, do not retreat blindly into your protective shell.
Stop.
Stop, just for 1 single second, and ask yourself one clear question. What am I choosing right now? Am I choosing true peace, or am I choosing self-preservation?
That single second of pause is the space between the stimulus and your response. It is the only place where your true freedom exists.
Yeah.
You do not always have to do the brave thing. You do not always have to be the hero who burns the bridge and speaks up. But as Nietzsche pointed out, you must stop giving your fear pretty names.
Call it what it is.
If you are avoiding a conflict because you are scared of the fallout, call it avoidance. Call it fear. Do not call it stoicism. Naming the reality of your choice is the only way to ensure that you don't slowly shrink away into nothing.
Stop giving your fear pretty names. Man, we've spent this whole deep dive uncovering how we use the concept of Stoicism to hide our very human fear of conflict. And, it makes you wonder, what other beautiful, noble virtues are we currently using as hiding places?
That's a profound thought.
Are you really being patient with your career trajectory, or are you just terrified of taking the next step and risking absolute failure? Are you fiercely independent, or are you just profoundly afraid of being vulnerable and relying on someone else?
It's worth asking.
Take a hard look at your greatest virtues this week and make sure they aren't just your fears operating in disguise.